Hello. Today I would like to talk to you about making direct questions with various verb tenses. First of all, let's look at how to make a yes or no question with the verb to be. We have seen this before, but it's good to review. First is that you should take your be verb and conjugate it, and then put it before the subject pronoun. Are you going to be home later? Is he prepared? Are they eating? Was he absent? Were they working on their project? In each of these cases, we see that the verb is before the subject pronoun. When we make yes or no questions with other verbs, we need to have an auxiliary of some sort, and then follow the rules of what to do with the verb. In this case, the auxiliary goes before the subject, and the subject goes before the verb. Do you have a dog? This is a question in the simple present. Does she have a job? This is also a question in the simple present. How do I know? I have an S on my auxiliary. Did he finish his homework? This is in the simple past. Will he arrive on time? This is in the simple future. Did he go to the garage? Also in the past. Question words. We have seen these before as well, but once again, it's good to review. So we use who to talk about a person or people, what for a thing, for a fact, or for information, when or what time for time, where for a place, why for the reason, how asks about manner, how much plus a singular or a non-count noun asks about quantity, and how many plus a plural noun also asks about quantity. How often asks for repetition. There are other question words as well. To make a direct question, the basic rule, once again, is to put the auxiliary before the subject and then perhaps a verb. Are you ready? Do you like cats? Did she understand the lesson? Where do you live? How often can she work? How many people will you talk to this week? In some of these questions, we need an extra auxiliary. When we make information questions with the verb to be, we conjugate the verb and place it before the subject once again. For example, we are going to Mexico. The question becomes, where are you going? So I've taken my verb to be and I put it in front of my subject. Why were they late? How are you today? What was he doing when I called? This is an example of the past progressive verb tense. When we conjugate other verbs in the simple present, we need an auxiliary. It's important to choose your helper verb, do or does. You place the auxiliary before the subject, and your main verb comes back to the base form. He works at Rona. In this case, I know that in the simple present I have to put an S on my verb. So to make my question, I take the S and I put it onto my auxiliary, which becomes does, and then there's no S on my verb. I can't repeat the S 2 times. So he works at Rona. Where does he work? They have 3 kids. Once again, I do not have an auxiliary. I need one. I do not have an S on my verb, so my auxiliary that does not have an S is do. That's what I'm going to use. How many kids do they have? With other verbs and other tenses, we follow the same structure. So you have an auxiliary, and you have a choice. If your verb is in the simple past, your auxiliary is going to be did. If you have a modal verb, such as will or can, then that is your auxiliary. If you use did or will or can, then your verb goes to the base form. And of course, you put your auxiliary before the subject, before the verb. What time did he leave? When will you finish your work? How much did the car cost? When can you meet us? Let's practice. She lived in Rimouski last year. Here I have my verb in the simple past, and there's a D on there. So which auxiliary has a D? Did. Where did she live? We can leave for Sherbrooke soon. Can, in this case, is my auxiliary. So I want to repeat that same auxiliary. When can you leave for Sherbrooke? They ate pizza for lunch. Here I do not have an auxiliary in my sentence, and my sentence is in the simple past. So I need an auxiliary that associates with the simple past. I only have one choice. It is did. What did they eat for lunch? And remember that if you use the auxiliary do, does, or did, then your verb comes back to the base form. So here is a quick chart showing you again the Quasvo rule. Question word, if necessary, auxiliary, subject, verb, and object, once again, if necessary. Sometimes you don't necessarily have a different verb. In that case, it's because you are using the verb to be. Sometimes you don't have a question word. It's because you are asking a yes or no question. But in these cases, you have to consider what happens to your verb. What is your name? In this one, I don't have an extra verb. Why were they leaving so soon? Here, my auxiliary is the verb to be, but I'm using a past progressive, so I want to keep my verb in the same structure. What did you have for breakfast? When my auxiliary is do, does, or did, my verb comes back to the base form. Where did she live? Same thing. My auxiliary is do, does, or did. My verb goes back to the base form. How much time will he need to finish? With an auxiliary like will or can, my verb stays in the base form. How can you practice English? Again, with an auxiliary like will or can, my verb stays in the base form. Does she understand how to make questions? In this case, I need an S on my auxiliary because my subject is third person singular. So, for more practice, you can look for a link with some activities. You can also look for online exercises. You can talk with people. And of course, you can try to listen to English as much as possible. I would like to thank you for listening to me right now. Have a nice day.